ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael here from Oilers Live with my co-host Dash from DashInThePark. Take everybody home tonight. We've got a guest tonight, Mr. Reid Wilkins. You know him from 630 Ched. He's been a longtime guy of the Edmonton sports scene, and we're happy to have you here in advance of Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. I see we've lost Dash already. Must have been something I said. How you doing, Reid?
Well, first of all, very disappointed that Dash has disappeared already. And I was wondering, I think that was the first time I've ever actually seen his name spelled out. I didn't know if it was DASH in the park or just in the park, but it's actually spelled out. And now I feel like I haven't done. So when I log into this program you have here, and man, oh man, there's a lot of these video streaming programmings. Like I go on Global, they just call me on Skype. They have something called Vimeo or something like that. And then some people send you just some other link. And then you guys have this, I don't even know what it's called. And then you have to put in your name. I was like, okay, Reid. And then I didn't realize it would be displayed. I would have put like Reid Wilkins, 630 Ched, or like, Reid Wilkins. And then like, send tips here or something. Like I had no like,
put in your
my OnlyFans account or something like that. Please tip me, and I'll send you some titillating pictures. But no, I'm generally happy to be here. I'm always a little confused as about why you would have me on, and a little surprised, and again disappointed that Dash is already not here. Dash. It's called a recycling depot. Take your VIC 20 there and get a new computer.
He'll maybe get there. He'll get there eventually. We'll get him a new laptop. Get him online. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised having you here. I love listening to your show. I've listened to it often enough out here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. There's Dash there. We got him back. We got you back, Dash. Looking good. Oh, there you go. Sideways at the corner.
Yeah. It's like when it's like when an alien attacks somebody.
It does sound a little bit alien. I don't know. Do you have some other audio on there, Dash? Oh, no. It's still not working. I'm going to throw you on mute because it does sound a little bit like we're
I think he's listening to a Bork album. York, what's her name? I don't know.
We'll get that figured out, right?
He's listening to. What's how do you say her name? Bjork.
Bjork, yeah.
What if Bjork did an album with Ray Bork? That would be good.
And that's why we've got you here tonight. Ask the tough questions nobody wants to ask.
Right, exactly.
I heard you on the Hangouts a couple of weeks ago, maybe about a week ago. That was good. It was good to have you on there. But and it occurred to me, and you mentioned it, is that anytime we've had you on Oilers Live, something big has happened. Of course, nothing big is going to happen today. But Sheldon Keefe signed with the New Jersey Devils.
True.
Does that surprise you at all that it was that quick a turnaround?
Well, I guess the thing that surprises me is now, and Escott was just talking about this on Oilers Now with Friedman. Where does Todd McLellan wind up? Is he not going to have a job?
Good point.
At the start of the season, I don't know if Todd wants to go back to San Jose with that team. They seem a ways away to me. I know Anaheim wasn't that great. Like Anaheim and Chicago seem like better teams to me. But I'm not sure if McLellan wants to go to a team that might win 19 games again or whatever they got to. And then I guess Seattle is still up for grabs, but it seems like Bilesma might be. So I guess more than Keefe getting hired quickly, it made me think like, oh, so all of a sudden we're running out of chairs here for Todd McClellan. Maybe he's the mid-season guy for somebody, right? That comes in January, February.
Well, and that might be a little bit more likely. And there's a couple names. Even today, I heard Button mention Todd Nelson. Right,
interesting.
He's having some success in the AHL this year with the Hershey Bears, and so who knows where he could go. There's what 3 or 4 spots I think that are open right now, or one less, of course, after the Sheldon Keefe news, and Hillier just signed in. He was interim in where was he? He was in LA. Yeah.
Stupid. Yeah, Todd Nelson's interesting to me. I mean, we are almost 10 years since he took over the Oilers for that last 3 quarters of the season. And then he's been a very good AHL coach. It seems his name is always out there. I know he would love to be an NHL coach. I mean, I haven't talked to him super recently, but why wouldn't you want to be an NHL head coach? I would love to see him get the opportunity. I remember the year he took over, the Oilers still weren't very good, but I remember him telling me once, I got to talk to him just off to the side. Well, there was one day, it was late in the season, that it was one of those games, they didn't have a morning skate. So I don't know if it was like just an early, I think it was a weekend game, but it wasn't a matinee. But they didn't have a morning skate, so they just said Todd Nelson will be available like 2 hours before the game. And in Rexall Place, the media room was that old dressing room that was just converted into a media room. Like it was very dingy and stuff. So me and Stoff were the only ones that showed up. So and then that media room was like too big. So we went into this other dingy dressing room, and I just talked to Todd Nelson, got like 2 minutes of tape before the game. Because it was near the end of the season and they were really bad. And I remember him kind of saying like, yeah, we want to do well, but we know the lottery odds with McDavid. But I remember it was either that day or another day, he said that he really worked on team camaraderie. That he said that was his main goal. Like he said, when he started, it was a lot of guys in groups of 2 or 3 doing their own thing. And he said by the end of the season, if there was a breakfast on the road, almost all the guys were sitting together. So he really focused on that. And oddly enough, even though that team was still pretty bad, I remember they played some fun games, like where they didn't go away. They just weren't good enough. Like they scored some goals. Was that not the year? Was it Marincin that had a shootout winner against Boston, or an overtime goal, and they beat Boston 1-0 or something like that? And I remember they were coming off the ice really, really happy, and Todd was all pumped up, and someone said to me, Todd told them if they win, they get tomorrow off, and they were all really happy. But yeah, he's a super nice guy, and I think I guess I worry about someone in that situation. Is he pegged as an AHL coach, or some teams just going to say, well, you're not the hot up-and-coming guy anymore. You've always been in the AHL. Do we want to put you behind an NHL bench? But I would love to see him get the opportunity.
Well, it was interesting listening to Button today. It was him and Coolius on a Sirius XM there. And Button was said, and I haven't looked it up since I've been back in front of my desk, but said 3 of the last 4 Stanley Cup coaches got their start in the AHL. And that's why they were bringing up Todd Nelson. I mean, most people, I think, in Edmonton think he got a bit of a raw deal here. Would have liked to see him, but it'd be kind of cool. I think if you're an Oilers fan, I think a lot of people have a soft spot for Todd because of that.
Well, and I think the hindsight too, right? Because he wanted the job when Aikens got it, and then Aikens didn't do much. Again, lousy roster, but his whole approach didn't exactly win people over, and some of his coaching tactics that worked in the American Hockey League didn't work in the NHL.
No, a little bit different star power.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Dash, let's test your mic there and see how it sounds.
How am I doing now? I don't know. 3rd try.
Well, it's a little bit scratchy, but I think we can get through it. Just sounds like you got a bad cold. Maybe gives you a little bit of a.
Sound like Darth Vader swimming.
Nobody has better analogies, I don't think, than Reid Wilkins, do they?
No, they they really don't. I'm not sure where they come from, but Bjork Bork. That's the latest album coming out. I know you missed that, Dash, but
I watched a lot of Dennis Miller when I was younger. Maybe that's
man,
that's what it is.
Dennis Miller. It's all coming together now. So tomorrow night's game 1, Western Conference Final. Tonight we start the Eastern Conference Final. Rangers in Florida. Who do you got for that?
Well, of course, I'm taking the Panthers because I've picked them 7 consecutive series, counting this one, because I picked them over Boston last year. Partially just to annoy Stoff, partially because I dislike the Bruins, and we have a couple big Bruins fans at Ched, and partially because it seems these 60-win teams never win the Stanley Cup. So I picked them, and then I kept picking the Panthers every series last year. So I'm picking them again. I mean, I haven't seen a ton of the Eastern Conference series, but I just think Florida is very well-rounded. I mean, and I think they can play if it gets physical or a little nasty. I know the Rangers have some players can do that too, but I just think Florida can be a little bit more bruising if it comes down to that too. If it just comes down to that really hard along the boards, battle in the slot type of hockey. And obviously, they went deep last year. Though I know the Rangers went to the conference final a couple years ago, but I'm taking the Panthers in that one.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think when I think about the Panthers, I mean, they've exercised their demons, right? Like, they've kind of been through it now, and they made it to the finals last year. So I think they're ready, right? You got, absolutely from a bruising standpoint, you think about Tkachuk and Bennett and these guys, like they can hang in there. I think in the playoffs, sometimes it's about who lasts the longest, right? It's not necessarily about, who the best team is, but who can outlive their opponent. I think Brad Marchand hit it on the head, right? Like when he's like, guys aren't maybe necessarily out to injure each other, but they're out to like finish their series, right? Do you know what I mean? Like to make you so battered and bruised. And if your name's not Leon Draisaitl, you're not playing on one leg, right? Like, and I think that's where Florida's at. Dash, thoughts on Florida and Rangers?
I opposite of Reid, I don't know. I've got this little bit of a feeling for some reason in my gut over watching them the last few years that Florida is going to be the new version of the San Jose Sharks. Just, they can win you a President's Trophy, but when it comes down to it, I'm not sure that they can get all the way through the Cup final. That said, can the Rangers? I don't know. I like what Reid said about the physicality and the board play, the Binizads and the bread man, and I'm not necessarily known for bullying or their physicality, right? So that said, I always like a goaltender and goaltending advantage, which, scares me for our Oilers upcoming series. But I think the Rangers have one of the best there too. So if that D can keep it together and the goaltending can stay solid, I think the Rangers will pull it off. But I think it'll be a tough one, like 6 or 7 games.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, that would be my pick too. And it's other than the Rangers and Caps in Carolina and who did they play in the first round? That's how much I cared about
Florida
it.
played the Lightning.
No, but the Rangers played
Washington.
And then Carolina played who in the first round?
Carolina played Islanders.
Yeah. I mean, those were the only 2 series that I think were lopsided. And for the most part, I think this has been pretty even playoffs, right? Like could go either way in each series. I mean, the Edmonton-Vancouver series was a good look at that. Now let's talk maybe a little bit about what we're really excited about, which is Edmonton and Dallas. Dallas looks to be everybody's favorite right now outside of Edmonton. I'm kind of like, I look at this, like you even talk to Oilers fans. I think we also kind of look at the Oilers team as maybe lacking a little bit of depth, but I'd say we've got more depth this year than we've had in years past. Do you think that the Dallas team is considerably more has considerably more depth than the Oilers, or is it marginal?
Yeah, I'd say it's more marginal. I really would. And I think even my attitude changed over the last 2 games of the Vancouver series. Just how the Oilers played, how confident Holloway looked. I think Kane's having a pretty good playoff. I mean, he was very up and down during the regular season, and I know he revealed the injury, but I think they have a pretty good second line now with Draisaitl, Kane, and Holloway. The fourth line for the Oilers, I guess, regardless of who's going to be the center, has been rugged, with Janmark. I mean, I've called Janmark a wild animal. Like, it's just like, what piece of meat do you want me to retrieve? Like, I'll go get it, And I think Brown's been, I know this Brown, he's, probably not going to score. He had the breakaway, but he kills penalties and he checks. So then again, we look at probably Fogle and McLeod, right? If they start potting a couple or can get to the net and create a little more zone time, because I thought in the Vancouver series, not in terms of minutes, but in terms of how effective they were, the fourth line was better than the third line on the whole. I know Ryan moved back and forth a little bit, or I guess he moved from the fourth to the third technically. So, yeah, I think Dallas is deeper. I think, having obviously Seguin and Ben, because they're both, what do they have listed as the third line? Is it Marchment, Seguin, and Ben? I'm trying to picture.
No, Ben was on the first line. It was Marchment, Seguin, and either Duchesne or...
Right, Duchesne, sorry. Right. So that's, that's a pretty good third line, right? And that's better than what the Oilers have been able to roll out. But I just think I know depth is important, but I don't think it's as big a detriment as it's been for the Oilers in other years because of how committed they played in games 6 and 7 against Vancouver. They just, everybody got involved, and I did think McLeod and Fogle played better. Unfortunately, McLeod's going to have to live with that really bad mistake. But I just watched. When I was watching Game 7 and then, online, I went home that night because I tape every game and I watched some parts of it. And then the next morning I watched, the 10-minute highlight pack that Sportsnet or the NHL puts out. And I just saw the Oilers making so many committed little plays, of course, you can't win every play clean, but get the puck out of the most dangerous area. Even if it's in the second most dangerous area, then you can deal with it there. When I think it was in the final 30 seconds, the puck was to the right of Skinner, and it was kind of bouncing around a little bit, and Nugent Hopkins kind of had to reach for it, and he just tapped it to the corner. He could have tried to make a play on his backhand and get it up the wall, but he probably doesn't get it out because there would have been a couple Canucks. He tapped it to the corner, and then he just chased it. It's like, okay, I got it further away from my net. Now I can go try to win a board battle. To me, that was it's not a glamorous play. It's not a goal. It's not an offensive play. But to me, that was a very mature play. Okay, the best play would be to get it out. The odds of me doing that aren't good because I'm on my backhand and I'm probably going to get hit. Get it to the boards and we'll fight for it there and we'll muscle up the wall. And they were able to do that in the third, when they were killing it off for the most part there at the end. So those kinds of things make me feel a little more optimistic about this series, that I think they're committed to just not giving Dallas anything clean. I'm sure at times they're going to get hemmed in, but I think they can do it to the Stars as well. But I just saw so many good plays like that in the neutral zone, in the slot, in the last 2 games against Vancouver.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I noticed that play by Nuge too, and to kind of gave me that every given Sunday a little bit, like every inch, every millimeter. You're clawing for it 5 seconds at a time. I had the pleasure of sitting beside Don Murdoch for one of the games here in Edmonton, and he, for those that don't know, played with the Oilers in 79 and 80, and he kept saying over and over and over again, and he'd point out these little plays, and it's funny how the mind never goes when it comes to hockey, right? And Bouchard has three options every single time he skates. He has the puck in our own end. He can skate it out, he can pass it out, or he can just make a safe play. And it seems like more often than not, he tries to make the hardest play possible instead of the simplest play possible. And that's slowly come out of his game. Slowly over this series, that's come out of his game. And Nuge was another example of that, Reid. You're absolutely right, where it's just like, let's play this game 5 seconds at a time. Let's make this split second more safe and then move on and try to go from there. So due respect, other than I'm going to disagree with you again. I think the Oilers' depth is better. In fact, I'm going to hot take this. I'm sick and tired of everybody in the media and everybody talking about the Dallas Stars' depth and how it's going to be the difference maker. I really am. Like, let's really break it down. Pavelski's 39. Ben's body is 49. They've got Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven on their top line. Like, if you're going to throw out a handful or a mouthful of proven playoff performers, when does Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven come out of your mouth? Sure, Pavelski's there on the second line. Sure, he's been an Oilers killer. I don't know. Playoffs is different. Rupe's hurt, right? You know, they talk about, okay, it's scoring depth. Well, that's not all the depth that there is in hockey. It's not just about scoring depth. To me, like, so what if they've got 9 players with 6+ points? We've got 4 of the top leading scorers in the playoffs, right? Like, goaltending, nod, no problem, not arguing that. Ottinger's one of the best. Bottom line, defense, I don't know. Their game breakers, Heiskanen, great, got 12 points. Bouchard's got 20. Heiskanen's got 25 points over the last 2 playoffs. Bouchard has 37. What's Bouchard, our second or third best defenseman? You know, like, so we roll out a game 7 where every single one of our 6 defensemen played between 6 and 22 minutes.
Yeah.
They're rolling out 5. They got at least one defenseman that's getting like 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes a night, whoever they're rotating in through that 6th spot. So I'd say we're maybe deeper at D. I'd say, yeah, I like that third line there, but scoring depth, sure. I don't know, defensive depth, maybe. We got the wild animal in Janmark. We got McLeod and these guys, Connor Brown, that like no goals against. They're just, I think, what has McLeod been on the ice for 2 goals for the entire playoff so far? Right.
Well, and we've still got Henrique and Perry sitting in the wings, right?
Yeah. Well, if Henrique comes back, that's huge.
Yeah, whatever it is. But
I'm happy to hear you. I'm happy to hear you have that optimism, Dash, because I do think I think Dallas has good depth, but I don't think it's a large gap. I'm having Brent Severin on my show tonight, who's an awesome interview, by the way.
Yeah.
And I taped it this afternoon, and he was kind of like pretty confident that the Oilers just can't match what Dallas is going to be able to do. And I'm like, I don't know. Like,
not watching that.
You don't have to, and you don't have to beat them 7 times in a row. You have to beat them 4 out of 7. Like, so I would agree. By the way, I totally mixed up the lines unless it was up there. I feel like I have to correct myself. So the latest they have is Johnston with Robertson and Stankoven.
Yeah.
That would be quite a young line, right?
Yeah.
I guess Robertson would be the oldest guy. And then it has now Daily Faceoff has this as the second line, but it might be more the third. Marchment, Duchesne, and Pavelski. And then Ben Seguin and Dodonov. So maybe those 2 would be interchangeable. 2 and 3. And then Faxa, Steele, and Smith is still the fourth line. So I obviously mixed up the lines, but still, like, that's a pretty good top 9. Like, Dodonov's a good player. But I will agree with you, Dash. Like, the Oilers, if you're coaching against the Oilers, you have to game plan for a lot. And I listened to DeBoer. I didn't see his comments today, but I listened yesterday, and he brought up Hyman, when he was asked about the Oilers offense, because of course, the questions there are like, well, McDavid and Draisaitl. And he's like, well, like, Hyman's in the blue paint the entire game. So you can't just defend the Oilers off the rush anymore, So I think that I do think it's going to be an incredible series. And I think too, do the Oilers have the edge in physicality if it comes down to that?
Close.
I mean,
Yeah,
I know they got
might.
Tanev and
I think, when I think about this, and I said this with the heavy hockey team, is, this is not the same. This is not Jay Woodcroft's Oilers, right? Like when you look at this team last year.
No, because we haven't been out coached in the playoffs yet.
Yeah, and it was McDavid and Draisaitl and Bouchard last year, right? Like that's the playoffs. The rest of the guys, they had, what would be considerably good seasons for most teams. But this year, we don't just have Draisaitl, McDavid, and Bouchard. We've got Nuge, who's chipping in. We've got Hyman. We've got Kane, Ekholm, and now Holloway.
Easy.
Like, that's halfway through the lineup. So, this is not the same team that everybody looks at and says, and they won a 1-0 game this year in the playoffs. They won a 1-0 game. They're playing a lot more mature than we've ever seen. You guys were talking about Nuge and Bouchard playing mature. Draisaitl had a little chip at the end of the game where he could have shot it at the goal, but instead he chipped it up and got on his horse and went after it.
I mean, we just Vancouver Canucks where Draisaitl didn't play more than 20 minutes in the game, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's depth. Honestly, like we just won a game 7 where Connor McDavid didn't get a point. That's depth.
That's true.
And I don't disagree with Reid. That top 9 is awesome. I can't disagree with that. But you know what, Reid? The third line might be better, but I'll take our top 2 lines over their top 2 lines any day.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. Our high-end firepower. And
so I don't know. Like I'm with all due respect, I'm kind of sick of it. I think the depth is pretty even, if not maybe our advantage, other than goaltending. And boy, that's important in the playoffs.
And the defense has improved considerably. And I like this Desharnais-Nurse matchup. Like I like putting the two of them together. They actually looked really good when they did that. Like Knoblauch's made some tough decisions in that last series.
He's got their role. The Harney's played the most time on ice for any Oiler penalty killing.
Yeah,
he's considerably better than he was last year.
Oh, he's way better. Like I thought he would actually became a liability in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
He took a penalty that led to a goal in overtime. I think that was in the very first game. But he looked a little overmatched at times in the postseason last year. He doesn't look that way at all. And I mean, I know you mentioned Woodcroft. I mean, he really stuck with Leon and Connor stayed together. I mean, Knoblauch's already put Leon and Connor together and then split them up. And even the slight adjustment with the D pairings, to me, that was significant. I remember when they did it mid-season and it was kind of like, why would they do that? And it's kind of like, well, we just want to see just in case. Well, now we're in the just in case. And the stuff with the goaltending, I mean, that would be my biggest criticism of Jay from the playoffs last year is just not starting Campbell. And I know whatever, it could have been a disaster, but he won that one game in LA. You think he would have got a start at some point. But so here's my question to you guys then, if I can ask a question. Skinner was 906 his last 2 games against Vancouver. Is that enough against Dallas if he's 906?
If we score 4 goals a game.
Yeah. My thought on it is Knoblauch's not. We've talked about this. Knoblauch's not Woodcroft. If it has to happen, he'll bring Picard in, and I think that is the difference maker this year versus any year past. I think Skinner sometimes needs a game just to collect himself and get back in, and Picard gives him that option. And there's not a lot of coaches in this league that would make that decision. Right? Because it's not an easy one. Woodcroft didn't make it last year.
I like what you said. Skinner's 7-1 all time in the playoffs after coming off a loss. So maybe he does need to sit down and
he's good. Like he's going to be, good, and he's going to need the defense to be good, and but Ottinger is definitely he's the cream of the crop when it comes to the goalies in this series. I think there's no doubt they've got the advantage.
And I'll be honest, Pete DeBoer scares me a little too, especially what is he?
Yeah, he's a good coach.
let's not get to Game 7.
Well, that's a good point. And it's interesting, again, talking to Severin, and I talked to him earlier in the season too, and he brought it up again today that when DeBoer came to Dallas, apparently I guess he coaches offense and forechecking differently than other coaches. Like, even uses different terminology, that. And I guess Pavelski had to like help some of the guys. We were kind of like, no, like it's not as weird as it seems. Just get out there and trust it and do it. Like, I found that really interesting.
He's not calling anything the swarm, is he?
He's not what?
He's not calling anything the swarm, is he?
The forum?
The swarm, like Aikens.
Oh, the swarm.
Oh, the swarm.
No, it's not. I don't.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be hilarious. Yeah, it's just the swarm.
We got a question in from some stranger on the chat. He says, "What do you think about the narrative that Tanev shut down McKinnon?" And I think we'll go that step further. Obviously, that he'll shut down McDavid. Obviously, that there's no Draisaitl on Colorado. Draisaitl might be the best playoff performer.
I think they'll put Heiskanen on McDavid.
Yeah. Just for the speed.
Yeah.
And Tanev then on Draisaitl.
Tanev on Draisaitl, yeah.
Last time Tanev tried to guard Draisaitl, I'm pretty sure we took the Flames out in 5, and Draisaitl broke Gretzky's record. So let's go.
True.
Yeah.
No, I believe Tanev was
on one leg.
Series.
Yeah, he had one arm, I think, but Draisaitl had one leg.
Yeah. Draisaitl's healthy for the most part going into this series. He is got to be. I mean, we're not talking about him enough. Potentially one of the best playoff performers of the past 20 years, even ever. Yeah, in ever.
Just has to win a cup, right? Like
yeah. Like he is phenomenal.
Well, they just had the Conn Smythe voting or trophy or whatever that came out. He's leading the playoffs in scoring. If you take all the other Oilers out, he's 10 points ahead of anybody else, and he didn't get one single edge for Conn Smythe whatsoever.
You're kidding.
Where was this?
It was posted on X somewhere. World Hockey Report had it up, Michael.
No.
Look at World Hockey Report tweets from.
I'll check that out.
I did a hit in Calgary today, and the host asked me who would be the Oilers' Conn Smythe winner, and I said Draisaitl. And quite frankly, I'd have Bouchard second.
The penalty kill.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Or I could just give it to the entire penalty kill. Give it to
the whole penalty kill.
But Draisaitl's like I don't know what else he has to do.
This is the athletic staff did this.
Okay. Yeah.
So who do they have as look, there's great players, but who do they have?
Wyatt Johnston is got the most, it looks like.
He's got 12 points, doesn't he?
Yeah, Shesterkin, Ottinger, Heiskanen, Barkov, then McDavid. It just tells me people aren't watching the Oilers. I mean, they're not staying up late enough. And I will tell you this, when the game starts at midnight out here on the East Coast, I'm the only one watching.
Right.
Like I might be the only. I might wake up the whole neighborhood when the Oilers score. But that's ridiculous. I mean, McDavid's been McDavid. He's been good, but he's been off, as anybody knows who's been watching the Oilers. Like, this is not prime McDavid. But
how do you overlook a guy who is the best passer in the NHL, has multiple 50-goal seasons, won a Hart Trophy when McDavid was out, and has the third most points per game in NHL history in the playoffs?
I have a theory on that. And I'm probably guilty of it in some areas of my work as well. But sometimes people don't change their minds, right? They see something happen, and what they saw for 2 or 3 years is what they continue to see, even though reality might be changing. So there's still, with some people, I think, there's still the perception that the Oilers are a two-man team, and that if you've never won a Stanley Cup, you're a loser.
True.
Right? Like, which isn't fair. But so that's why, up until recently, whenever Pittsburgh made the playoffs, a whole bunch of people would pick them to win.
Mhm.
Even though, some years they're going in as now a 6th seed with no goaltending and one line. But they got the reputation. Well, they got Crosby, so I don't know. I guess I'll pick them. So I think sometimes people look at the Oilers and say, well, I don't know who's on the team. Well, they never win. Yeah, they're just going to try to win with 2 guys again. No goalie. You can't defend. That's still who they are, right? Like it. Now, I get it to some extent, though. I think if you're covering the NHL, you should have moved past that. But I mean, let's face it, guys. If someone brings up Cleveland Browns, what's the first thing you think of? That they suck. But they haven't sucked every year.
Yeah,
they've made the playoffs, I think, a couple times in the last 5. But I do think that unfortunately that is part of it. I'm probably guilty of it sometimes. I try not to be. I try to consider as much as I can, but I think probably that's why. Though I don't know if you're picking a cut. I don't know how you can look at the scoring race and not have Draisaitl in your top 3, even if you want to pick 2 goalies. Of course, goaltending is important. Like if you want to say Shesterkin, fine. A goalie's always a candidate, pretty much, right?
Here's the one that'll kill all of you guys, which which I didn't mention, is this is by percentage of vote. Draisaitl had 0. Austin Matthews had a small percentage.
That's not true.
It's true.
That's not a real poll.
I mean, I'll have to talk to our friend over at World Hockey Report and see, make sure this is legit. But
you have to win a round. Don't you have to have been in the second round to be picked as the best player through 2 rounds?
Or get more than 1 goal.
Right. Otherwise, Connor should have won the Conn Smythe 2 years ago when he led the playoffs in scoring.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he definitely had a shot on it, didn't he? I mean, that was pretty ridiculous here. All right, so next up is tomorrow night. Oilers play Dallas in Dallas, 7:30 Mountain. Right, every game's going to be 7:30 Mountain.
6:30.
6:30.
6:30 Mountain.
Oh yeah, 6:30.
Then Saturday is 6 Mountain.
Perfect.
Then 3 and 4 are 6:30 Mountain. Right? Do you have it up? And then it's TBD
after that.
5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, 6. Yeah, quite a bit earlier.
So you got to tell me. I mean, you're going to be on during the Panthers Rangers game tonight, right?
I'll be doing Inside Sports. Yeah.
Yeah. You got the game on in the studio there? You watching it live?
Yes, I do. Yeah, there's like 2 big TVs on the other side of this laptop.
When we're sitting here and we're listening to you tonight, do you ever notice like you've zoned out because you're into like a really big play ever, and then you
no, it's actually the opposite. I sometimes I pay less attention to the game than I should because I'm pretty focused on hosting. Yeah. So there's plenty of times I might say, hey guys, somebody scored and I'm not sure who it was, but I'll watch the replay. And I tried that early. I was like, okay, I'm going to host and I'm going to watch the TV the entire time. I can't do it. Yeah. So if I'm going to sacrifice something, it's going to be another, because at least I got the internet and I can catch highlights. And if people are in their car, they're not going to be upset if I mention the goal. They won't even know if I mentioned it 2 minutes after it happened. And if they're watching it at home with the sound down and listening to the radio, then they're listening to the radio for a reason, and they're getting their updates anyway. So, yeah, sometimes I'm like, geez, I should be paying closer attention to the game, but I get into hosting, or like I'm reading an email, or I want to look something up. So I've kind of realized I have to sacrifice watching another game maybe as closely as I would like, because I want to do my job as best as I can.
Yeah. Now you've got the Brent Severin interview. What else you got on tonight?
We'll just have some Oilers tape and chat and probably take some phone calls and texts. So, yeah, just the one guest tonight.
Yeah. What do you before we let you go? What's your thoughts on Vancouver going into next year? I mean, there's got a number of UFAs. Everybody's talking about the future being bright, but they've got to re-sign a number of these guys. Pedersen, I don't know where he disappeared to, but was pretty much a no-show for the playoffs, I thought, and. Maybe I didn't watch enough Vancouver. I think I watched pretty much every Canucks game.
Did I or did I not say you cannot rely on a player named Huggy and Petey going into the playoffs? When I'm right, I'm right.
And, your thoughts on, I guess, Vancouver, like what they're, is there a future for this team? Like, are they going to be back on top next year? Tocchet did an amazing job. Like, if he's not up for Coach of the Year, he should be.
Well, he should win Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
I think
that unexpected, really.
I think they have to be very careful that they don't turn into the 17-18 Oilers.
Good point.
Now I do. Demko's obviously a high-end goalie, and I think that they made some smart additions on defense, bulking up a little bit. I think Zadorov's a UFA, right? Are both Susie and Myers signed? I can't remember. But Zadorov might be gone, right?
Lindholm, Bluger, Lafferty, Dakota, Myers, Zadorov, Cole. They're all UFAs.
So Myers is as well. Okay.
Yeah. And Hronik, RFA.
Right. And Joshua was, that's a guy who was a revelation for me.
Yeah.
So they burst onto the scene. They did really well. Now the challenge is maintaining it. When now you're going to be a little bit of a marked team next year, right? Because you beat some teams this year that you probably ticked off a little bit. I do think Tocchet's a really good coach. I also think he's going to have to adjust. And I've seen some discussion, with Vancouver media too, saying, how do you get 32 shots on goal in 2 games with a chance to move on to the conference final? Yes, in Edmonton, we're talking about blocking shots and defensive commitment. From a Canucks angle, don't you have to say, you got to get the puck to the net? You're playing a cold mid-series. Yes, you can look for grade A shots and higher percentage chances, but do you not have to be a little busier in the offensive end? And that's how they played in every game. And I totally respect their resilience. I totally respect how they won a lot of dramatic games and games that they shouldn't have won. But eventually it was too much. They were down 3 goals in games 1 and game 7. You're not going to win both.
Yeah.
And yes, they tied game 4 dramatically, but they didn't win because it's too much to ask every single time. I almost think I said this talking with Bryn yesterday, I actually think that they got too comfortable playing from behind. That they had these thrilling victories, and it was so exciting that Bouchard scored. Oh, the shots are 23-4. Oh, we're only down 2-0. We know how to deal with that. Yes, that's part of being a good team, but you can't. Yeah. It was almost like, oh, by the way, Rick Tocchet just won the Jack Adams. The email just came.
Yeah.
So, there we go.
They're like a jiu-jitsu fighter. They want to fight from underneath,
I have no idea what that is, but yes. I sort of know what it is. Do you guys watch UFC? Because I never got into that. And part 2 of that question, when I do see UFC now, it just seems it's almost turned into boxing. That all the other stuff doesn't get used as much.
It depends on the fight. I don't watch enough of it, but it depends on who's fighting. And certainly, every match can be different. Some can be stand up, some can be on the ground. And it varies. It really depends on the fighters and how they trained for it and a number of different things. But the episode 300, UFC number 300, Reid, if you get a chance, there's a guy, Holloway, who it might have been one of the best fights I've ever, well, at least one of the best endings I've ever watched in a match. And just have a YouTube of that. And when it happened, just like when the Oilers score a goal, I got out of my seat and had my hands over my head like I couldn't believe what I just witnessed. I was absolutely outstanding. So take that one in. You might make a fan out of you.
Championship? Was that for the
it
title?
It was a title bout, I believe. I don't, the truth is I don't watch it enough. I've enjoyed, the times I have watched, and I watched that one just getting together with some friends, but that was definitely enjoyable bout, one that'll get you out of your seat.
Okay.
And before we let you go, because I don't get enough of this from Dash and the guys at Heavy Hockey. I mean, what's going on in the Edmonton sports scene right now that's like really big news outside of the Oilers?
Outside of the Oilers?
Yeah. I mean, is there anything like
the Oilers
happening
watch
there?
parties? No.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, first of all, I should mention this off the top. The Michelle and Catherine Plouffe made the Olympics in 3x3 basketball.
Right on.
I want to recognize them because I've been interviewing them for a decade. They did play, I don't even know what it's called now, traditional basketball. Like they were on the 5v5 team. I think in 2012, 3x3 has taken off. As you guys know, they've qualified for the Olympics, and that's amazing. So I got to congratulate them. The Stingers started up last night in Calgary. They won. They got a home game coming up this weekend. The CBL has been a great story for like a good Canadian sort of not major basketball league, but they've done a good job. The Elks start this weekend. I love talking about the CFL, but it's clearly on the back burner here. I hear great things about McLeod Bethel Thompson as a human being and as a teammate.
Yeah.
And then hopefully as a quarterback too, because let's face it, that's neat. They didn't have a quarterback once Ford took over, they were exciting. At least they didn't always win, but they were exciting. So I do think, once they get going, that's going to be a story to watch. I mean, again, there's nowhere to go but up from them. The Riverhawks will start up. I'm probably missing something, but those are just some things that pop into my mind.
Yeah, no, that's great. I have heard a little bit about the CBL and the Stingers, and that's a good product. I'd like to go and catch a game next time I'm out there. And I mean, Edmonton, I'll tell you what, being away from Edmonton for as long as I've been, I've always loved the Edmonton sports scene, whether it was, back in the day when I'm really dating myself when the Drillers played soccer and right straight through. There was always something. The Trappers, now the Riverhawks. But the Riverhawks seem to be doing great, like in terms of getting fan support and just.
They've done a good job. I went to a game now. To be honest, not everybody's watching the game, but they've turned it into a good experience of sitting in the River Valley. And I will just say something quick. I know you guys probably want to get rid of me, but this is a great city to cover sports. Like, of course, it's Oilers dominant, but people will care and celebrate the other teams. I mean, they need to be good. I mean, clearly it's been a tough go for the Elks for 4 or 5 years, really. Like even before 2020, they weren't that great. But a few years ago, this would have been several years ago now, the Golden Bears and Dinos were ranked 1-2 in U Sports, not just Canada West. They were ranked 1-2 in the national poll. And they were playing a regular season series in Calgary. And like Stoff and I had a guest on like every day, Monday to Thursday, like leading into the series. And I was talking to someone I know in Calgary, and I was like, "Oh, like, are you guys talking about this?" And they were like, "Well, not really." I was like, "Well, the Dinos are actually the number one team, though. Like the Bears are kind of the underdog, 2-1, and they were like, doesn't move the needle. University hockey doesn't move the needle." And I'm like, I realize some people in Edmonton will say, well, I only watch the Oilers, but I think people care and will go to a Bears game and want them to succeed. I think Bears football was a great story last year, that they were finally good and were seconds away from winning Canada West. So it is a great city to cover sports, because I think if people appreciate the teams and appreciate, good local stories.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that brings me to, we never talked at all about Dutchie. We haven't been on in a couple of weeks, but he was a big part of that too before anyone was. And I was saying one of my memories of him was him covering. He used to cover like local high schoolers athletics. Do a little segment on his show, and he was definitely a big part of that. Hey, Reid. Honestly, love having you on. I know you question us every time we have you, why we have you, but it's because you're enjoyable. We love your analogies. Love listening to the show, and we hope to have you back again. Have fun tonight, and have fun during the Oilers Dallas series for sure. Dash, any last words for Reid before we go to break and get Ryan Lotsberg back?
No, just next time you're in town, Michael, let's take Reid out for and break bread with some Oilerslive.
That's right.
Yes, I was still waiting for my salad dressing or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about the Oilerslive. Well,
that's all I got.
Just so you know. Thanks, that Reid. I'm listening, right? All right, we're going to go to break, and when we get back, we've got senior writer from Heavy Hockey, Mr. Ryan Lotsberg. Thanks, Reid. Have a great night, and good luck tonight.
See you.
Send the rest of the fantasy hockey hacks right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Mountain, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavyhockey, and make sure you like and subscribe. Looking for a hockey fix? We've got editorials, fantasy hockey, monthly brackets, and more. Go to heavyhockey.com. Hey, it's Oilers Live Tuesdays, a regular 9 p.m. Mountain Time, now streamed live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, or tune in at youtube.ca/heavyhockey. Make sure you subscribe.
Oilers Live Podcast.
Want hockey podcasts? Tough Call Podcast, 99 Forever Podcast, fantasy hockey hacks, and replays of Oilers Live. Available anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Heavy Hockey Network or go to heavyhockey.com.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, it's Michael, Dash, and Mr. Ryan Lotsberg back for the second half of Oilers Live, back for a Wednesday. We missed a couple of weeks, chatting with you guys, and we've got Ryan, who's been responsible for pretty much every heavy hockey minute of this year's playoffs. Thanks for having us.
Why would we stop now?
Yeah. Why is everything backwards at your place, Ryan? We gotta mirror image your video here.
Oh, hang on. There's some behind the scenes magic that needs to happen here.
Who's David Kim? Who's David Kim?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, McDavid.
And your hair's parted the right way too. Good.
It's funny how that works.
There it is. Hey, I missed you guys. Hey, what's it been? Like 3 months since we were on? I don't know. What's happened since the last time we talked? Oh, yeah, we won another series.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? We am. Yeah, Vancouver fans.
Yeah, there we go.
Cup pictures. Suck it. Hey, no, this is good. Like what? You had a LBI or a upper body injury, Michael? You couldn't tough it out for a few weeks. I think you've been
that's right.
Jet setting from Newfoundland to Alberta and back. So
yeah, I did the coast to coast there. So
back together.
Yeah, now we're back together finally. I didn't get to see you guys while I was out west, but that's all right. Next time, hopefully, if the playoffs go a little bit longer, maybe I'll be making a trip out to the homeland to watch some Stanley Cup finals. But we won't go that far yet. We'll just
you can buy our tickets then, because we can't afford to keep going. Jesus,
I know this is now. Are the give me the ticket news here? Are the tickets going up every series, or are they the same price?
Oh, they go up every. Yeah, no, our lower bowl 124 corner seats were I don't know, 900 a pair in the first round, 1,000 a pair, and now they're 1,200 a pair. It'll be 1,500 a pair. The Oilers took every advantage that the season ticket holders had, like by trying to take the black market out of it and charging what the black market used to. They've taken every advantage that we have as a season ticket holder. The only reason I have season tickets is so that I can go to playoff games. And now we're having to sell them for $200 less than what we bought them for because the market just like, and maybe that'll even out now because it's a third and fourth round. But yeah, it's been a little bit crazy. A little bit crazy.
Is that the case? Is that like what you're selling them for is less than
what
the ticket value is?
I'd say more tickets are being sold for less than face value than the other way.
Yeah. How about Reid Wilkins? I mean, that
what
guy,
a beauty, hey?
Isn't he? He's one of the best.
Sorry about the audio crap there. I was trying to log in and out of 3 devices to make sure this could work, but
it's all right. You only got chirped once. Dash, get a mic that works.
Yeah. Well, and I think he called me a Swedish pop star of some kind, but I only caught half of it, so I'm not sure what happened.
Well, when you first joined, it sounded a little bit like the Borg or something was taking over here.
Well, I'm a Borg, and he's called you a cyborg, so I
know.
Hey, we've all had. So now that I've got good audio, and I do what I do, like taking over things and interrupting and stuff like that, should I just do that for the rest of the show? You want me to pull off this little segment that we're gonna surprise Ryan with, or what?
That sounds good to me. I mean, we've got you. I put you into the host area on the screen, so you got the big seat now. You take over. I'm gonna sit back, maybe close my eyes, relax, listen to the sultry sounds of Ryan Lotsberg and Dash in the Park, and then, well, whenever you call on me, I'll talk then.
Oh, all right. Well, this is there you go. Thanks, some stranger. Sorry about the audio BS. We worked through it, just like the Oilers. We worked through it. So hey, yeah, you know what? This has been done on every podcast, every radio station, whatever you want to call it. It's had a different name. TSN called it Tell Me I'm Wrong. We can call it whatever you want. But ultimately, that's what we're going to do. I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to make some outlandish statements. Maybe you guys agree with them. Maybe you don't. But I'd like to hear your answers nonetheless.
Well, hold on here a second. Dash, going to make outlandish statements?
Yes.
We're really going off the charts here.
Yeah, I know.
This is crazy.
Right? Hey? I know. Okay. So actually, you're going to get to do a lot of talking, Michael, because your opinion's important because you're answering the questions. But
viewership just dropped like 20%.
Whoops. Well, that's probably because I'm hosting now. But all right. I'm just going to say, tell me I'm wrong, because that's what it is. And Connor Halley told me I could use that name one day. So I'm sticking with that permission. All right. Let's kind of ease into it a little bit, I think, because I'm going to try and cover the last series as well as the one coming up. The Oilers still have another level to get to that we haven't seen yet so far in these playoffs. Tell me I'm wrong. Ryan?
I think you're approximately right there. I think we got something close to that in game 6 and 7. Like game 6, that was just a clinic by the Oilers. Like the Canucks couldn't really get anything going all night. I mean, 5 even strength goals compared to 1. And then game 7, we controlled the play most of the night. And a couple of slips at the end of the game there made it interesting. Mm-hmm. But I think the Oilers have another level they can get to.
Michael?
I think I'm kind of on the fence about this because I've been thinking about this a lot, and I just think it depends on each team, right? Like whatever level, they got to another level against Vancouver, but you got to play each team differently, right? And that's what makes the playoffs so damn exciting, right? Is Dallas doesn't have the same PK that Vancouver had. And so, the Edmonton Oilers power play might look like it's at another level, but is it really? I just think it all depends on how the teams match up and what the Oilers gave when they needed to in game 6 and 7. That was the other level. They need to, I don't know that they have another level beyond that, but they need to be at that level.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think you guys both make great points. Honestly, I think like matchups are key, right? We've seen that. We saw the regular season undefeated Vancouver Canucks versus the Edmonton Oilers not matter in the playoffs. I'd say we dominated them for most of that series. LA's PK was second in the NHL, Lotsy, in the regular season.
Yep.
How'd our power play do against them? Right? It's
Okay, I think.
pretty
Yeah.
okay. I think last time I checked, I think 60% or whatever is pretty decent. So ultimately, you're right. It comes down to playoff Oilers versus playoff opponent. And we haven't seen playoff Oilers versus playoff Dallas Stars yet. Right? So I'm not really sure how that's all going to come out and whether we'll get to another level. That said, I agree with some stranger. I do think our goaltending needs to get to another level. All right, next one. Okay, in our experience throughout our lifetimes, the generational players will eventually get their cup, right? Bobby Orr did it, Gretzky did it, Lemieux did it, Sid, Stammer, if you want to call him that, Ovi. 97 will get his cup. Now, few doubt the skill level of our core group, with the Nurse, Bouchard, Nuge, McDavid, Dry. But this leadership group has always needs some sort of slap in the face in order to get going, in order to show some sort of urgency. So my statement is this. The Oilers core leadership group has now learned how to lose, or at least learned how to hate losing enough that they can will their way to a Stanley Cup championship. Michael, tell me I'm wrong.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that, we talk about the depth, we talk about everything. To me, that's going to be, obviously the series needs to be played, but if the Oilers come out of this series, it's because Draisaitl and McDavid are tired of losing. Full stop. And I think that's going to be the difference in this series, in my mind.
Bingo. Ryan?
I'm not sure how I feel about that statement because, you're definitely right in saying that they're slow starters and they need backs against the wall to really get going. We saw them kind of climb their way up from the dead this year, and they had an 8-game winning streak and then another 16-game winning streak. But I don't know how much of that was because Connor and Leon are tired of losing, or if that was good coaching and a new defensive zone system coming in and improved goaltending. Like, there was a lot of factors going in there. So, it's a pretty obvious statement to say the Oilers will go as far as Connor and Leon take them. But in hockey, there's 20 guys, there's 18 skaters and a goalie on the ice throughout the night, right? You need contributions from everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you guys think that we're going to take them as far? We will get as far as Draisaitl and McDavid can take us, and I agree. So if that's the case, you'd think that has been the key factor in the playoffs for us thus far, would be our game breakers. That said, I would make a statement to say that perhaps the penalty kill has been the number one reason that we are in the Western Conference Final right now. That penalty kill was perfect in the first series. Perfect. And it was 92% in the second round. It was 14 for 14 over the last 3 games of the series. They had a 4-minute power play in game 7, and we cleared the puck 9 times and had a breakaway while they got 0 shots. If that isn't deflating, I don't know what is. So maybe it's Draisaitl, maybe it's McDavid. Maybe it's the fact that the power play coach for neither LA or Vancouver could figure us out. But what if it's Mark Stewart? Because I think the PK is the MVP for the Oilers right now and the number one reason they're in the conference finals. Tell me I'm wrong. Michael?
Oh, I mean, all those stats are pretty convincing. But I mean, I look at that, game 7 with Vancouver. I mean, they were hurting without Besser on that power play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to take that game 7 and put that into account. But the rest of the series, PK looked great. I maybe take it just a little step further and say it's special teams, right? but
Great point.
no,
you go ahead.
I think,
You
I
can go
think
there. That's
special
okay.
teams. Yeah, I think special teams in general. But then, I look at this team and the Oilers are doing better 5v5 than they've ever done. So maybe I'll stick with, maybe I'll just say you're wrong. I think the Oilers are finally playing a fully rounded game where everything's working to their advantage, including the PK. So I don't think we can specifically say that the PK, but we forgot about the bias reffing. Bob, the goalie, brings that up. Obviously, they hated the Canucks. Obviously. All right.
Obviously.
I'm done. I disagree. Well-rounded team. That's what got us the series win.
Mark Stewart's the MVP, Ryan. Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't fully tell you that you're wrong, but I agree with a lot of what Michael said. Like, special teams are the biggest reason that the Oilers are where they are right now. Like, if you're looking on moneypuck.com and their expected goals at 5-on-5 is not very good. I believe they're 10th in the playoffs at expected goals percentage right now. So the Oilers 5-on-5 play, we're leading the league in 5-on-5 goals scored with 28, but the underlying numbers aren't necessarily spectacular. Like, we're overachieving with our 5-on-5 goal scoring. So special teams, though, like PK is at just over 91% for the playoffs, perfect in round one. As you said, 14 in a row to end the series when it mattered most. 5-on-3 kill in game 6, 4-minute penalty kill in game 7. It's come up big. And the penalty kill was a huge problem at the start of the season while Woodcroft and Manson were still here. Like, we were running, I believe it was around 70% before the coaching change happened. Then they went on a crazy run. It's like Oilers PK has either been hot or cold this season. It's feast or famine, and it's feasting in the playoffs right now.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. Absolutely great answer. Okay, this one's a little more fun. Back me up on some of this because I just have it in my head, but I don't know the exacts. But I know Cody Ceci is now Mr. Game 7. Get a key goal in Game 7 to get us going here. If I'm not mistaken, Cody Ceci had a clinching Game 7 goal last year in the playoffs. Zach Hyman had a clinching goal in the playoffs last year. OT winners this year, leading our team in scoring in postseason. Connor Brown is one of the best penalty killers on our team, maybe in the league, if you want to see what our PK is doing. My statement is this: if the Toronto Maple Leafs still had CC, Brown, and Hyman, they'd have won way more playoff games in the last 3 postseasons. Tell me I'm wrong.
You go, Lotsy.
I will tell you you're wrong on that because the Leafs are going to leaf. That's just what they do. They still lost Game 7s when they had CC and everybody else use it, and Hyman and Barry. Right? Like, the Leafs are going to leaf.
Yeah. I mean, you can't deny there's something wrong with the culture there for them to have that type of experience. I mean, and it starts with the rumors around Marner, right? Like, the Leafs will be the Leafs until they change anything in the leadership in that room.
Yep. All right, let's get down to some players. Evan Bouchard has 46 points in 40 career playoff games. He had 17 points in 12 playoff games last year, 15 of which were on the power play, which broke Paul Coffey's records. He led playoff scoring by defensemen last year and only played 2 rounds. This year he's got 20 points instead of 17 points in 12 games. Cut back on some of the power play stuff, but he's got 37 points in the last 2 playoffs in 24 games. Is Evan Bouchard's... No, here's my statement. Evan Bouchard's offense is so good that his defense doesn't matter. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, who wants to go first on this one?
Well, yeah. I think you're wrong. I mean, defense wins championships, as they always say. But thankfully, Bouchard has been solid on defense this year, like better than he's ever been. So it does matter, but it hasn't mattered because Bouchard's been good on both sides of the puck. I think he's
Yeah, well said.
he's not the same Bouchard that he's been.
Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with your statement. You take the good with the bad, or you take the bad with the good with Bouchard. His offensive skills are elite, and yep, he still makes the odd mistake where you're putting your hands on your head, like, "What are you doing?" And there were even a couple of those against the Canucks. But when you're putting up 20 points in 12 games as a defenseman and setting league records, I'll deal with a blunder or two in a series. Like, no big deal. So yeah, I agree.
I think so too. And you know what? Like the positive note in all of this is that, and Michael touched on it, the trend is there, right? I think like we're seeing nothing but positive. Even when he's breaking records in last year's playoffs, he was a -4. He's a +10 in this year's playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there. And this isn't part of the game here, but side question, which Oilers player is the most polarizing amongst fans in losses? And not named Nurse.
Yeah, that's not polarizing. They like to go on one side of that argument.
Yeah, fair enough, right? Like it's Bouchard, right? And would you be surprised to hear that would you guys be surprised to hear that when I went and looked at the goal differentials for all players in all situations in this year's playoffs, that Bouchard is blowing away the rest of the NHL? +23.
Really? That's pretty impressive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and so here's another outlandish statement. Evan Bouchard is a #1 defenseman in the NHL. Tell me I'm wrong, Ryan.
I can't. I fully agree with that. He is a true #1. And in fact, he's in the top 10 of NHL defensemen right now, in my opinion.
I'd tell you he's still underrated. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Point a game defenseman, still underrated. Well said, dude. Well said. And you know what? Like, I'm going to use that as a segue. And if you were listening earlier, Lotsy, we touched on this with Reid, but Dallas depth. Okay? Dallas depth. I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm telling you that right now. Pavelski's 39. Ben's body is 49. Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven are not established top-line players. Hins is hurt. They're rotating 5D. We've got 6D that played between 16 and 21 minutes in Game 7. We won a Game 7 without McDavid getting a point. In 81 games this year, Draisaitl played under 20 minutes 9 times. He did it 5 times this series. We have depth. Sure, it might stop between the pipes. But my statement is this: the Oilers' depth is better than the Dallas Stars. Tell me I'm wrong. Michael?
I think they're pretty even. I wouldn't say better, but I think they're pretty damn even. And when I consider the fact that the Oilers don't have as many passengers this year, right? Like that there's in years past, it's been McDavid and Draisaitl, no doubt, and Bouchard. You'd add Bouchard in there last year. But they didn't have Nugent Hopkins. They didn't have Hyman. They didn't have Ekholm. They didn't have Nurse. Like, you're getting halfway down the lineup before you can stop and say they didn't have, right?
Yep.
Like, these are guys that are all contributing to the offense of the Oilers. And I just think, what we talked about earlier, this Conn Smythe voting percentage with The Athletic, just goes to show you that what people are watching is not the Oilers. Because if they were watching the Oilers, they'd realize that our best player wasn't even Connor McDavid.
Right.
It was Leon Draisaitl. And then I'd argue our second best player was Evan Bouchard. And when Connor McDavid is your third best player on your team, I'd say that's all right depth. And I'll take it. I'll take it any day of the week. Yeah.
Pretty good depth. Like Dallas, so we've got 9 players with 6+ points. All that tells me is you got a better third line than us. Because I'd take our top 2 lines over their top 2 lines anytime.
We've got 7 players with 6+ points, by the way. So we're not that
not 9, but yeah, exactly. What do you think? Who's got more depth here?
I'll take the counterpoint on this. I will tell you you're wrong. I will say that Dallas has more depth. I mean, 8 20-goal scorers during the regular season versus 5 for the Oilers.
This isn't the regular season anymore, Lots. It isn't.
Yeah. But it matters. Like, you got an 82-game sample size over about what depth actually is here. So yeah, our top end is better. Absolutely, our top end is better. But the Ryan McLeod line doesn't have a single point in these playoffs, and the only 2 goals
scored 20 goals. Elias Pettersson scored 20 goals. How did that go for them in the playoffs?
True.
Doesn't matter. I don't care how many 20 goal scorers you have. That means, I'm sorry, I'm going to bite you on this. Like, there's enough 20 goal scorers in the NHL to come out into the playoffs and get a squat. We got one of them in Fogle. So honestly, I mean, the guys that are getting 20 goals in the regular season aren't the guys that are scoring for them in the playoffs right now. They're being carried by Wyatt Johnson, Ryan.
Yeah, and he led their team in scoring in the regular season as well.
Well,
he was their leading
look
goal
at a
scorer.
3-year, 4-year sample or whatever, right? I mean, like it's not Robertson, it's not Ben, it's not Sagan, it's not those guys, right? Like, they're not being led by the guys you'd think they are. Yeah, they're depth players, but anyways.
The thing of it is, Dash, though, like, the Oilers have 0 points from their third line, and they have 2 goals from their fourth line. Or sorry, 3. 2 of those are Dylan Holloway in Game 4 against the Kings. We got 1 goal from I can't remember even who scored it against Vancouver. Was it Brown that got one? Or anyway, somebody else got one. But like, you got 1 goal from your bottom 6 in 12 games in the playoffs. That's not depth. All the offense is coming from your top 2 lines in the power play. That's not depth.
They don't let him in either, and that's the way we're built.
Yeah, Ryan McLeod's been outscored 4-1 at even strength.
He's been on the ice for 4
4 goals in 12 games isn't a huge number. It's not panic-inducing, but McLeod isn't necessarily the superstar shutdown D that we're all, or defensive center that we're making him out to be.
So some stranger brings up something that he's saying, how did they manage to beat Vegas and Colorado? And I guess here's the big question, and we're going to find out tomorrow and throughout the series, is can they shut down 2, arguably top lines on any team in the NHL?
Yep.
Right? This is not, we don't have a line 1 and 2. We've got a line 1 and a line 1. And can they shut both of them down? And if they can, then we can talk about whether or not Dallas had the depth to shut down Vegas and Colorado. Right? Like, you know, I think 1 + 1 is equal to 3 in this instance, right? Like, you've got 1, 2, and 3 on Dallas. And arguably, I mean, we had Perry on the third line, right? And we had to take him off. I mean, he didn't have the speed to keep up with McLeod and Fogle, right? Like, that's not, and Perry's been playing fourth line any other year that he's been in the playoffs, right? He's been a difference maker from a veteran standpoint. Henrique should be back, so maybe we get him on line 3. Yeah. Holloway moving up was like a revelation. One that I think we talked about on this show early on. I didn't think would happen, but he's made a big difference. We've got 2 top lines now.
We're just built differently.
I think we are. I think that's
like Dallas
that's
can roll 3 lines at you, and there's your top 9, and that's great. But we're gonna throw 6 at you that you can barely even handle, and then the other 6 are gonna play their role, not let it go in, and play the PK. Right? You got Connor Brown.
The way I see it, it's going to boil down to
you got McLeod on the PK. Those guys all have a really important role too.
I mean, from 5-on-5, the way I see it, our top 2 lines are probably going to outscore their top 2 lines, right? Just by how much is the question. And then we have Tyler Seguin versus Ryan McLeod on the third line. Seguin's up 7-4 at even strength throughout the playoffs, whereas McLeod's down 4-1, right? So they're kind of, I mean, it's 3 goals plus for Seguin, 3 goals minus for McLeod, 6 goal differentials. So is that the way that's going to play out with that third line matchup? Can McLeod do enough defensively to kind of counterbalance the top 2 lines? Right? Like, he needs to do enough to have the top 2 lines actually can be that advantage for us.
Yep, well said. I agree. Okay, one more to finish it off, I think. And unless you want to jump in there, Michael, go ahead.
No, finish it off. That's all good.
One more, and then we can wrap up the show, I think, here. And let's just the obvious one. It's the one we haven't really talked about yet. It's the biggest disadvantage we'll have in this series versus the Stars, as well as potentially moving forward if we are up against Shesterkin or Bob in the finals. But goaltending, my outlandish statement is this. Our goaltending is good enough for us to win a cup this year. Tell me I'm wrong, Michael. You have before.
Yeah, I have before. Yeah. I mean, it's good enough. Is it good? Like compared to other teams that have won the Stanley Cup? I don't think so. I mean, we would be the first team to win a Stanley Cup without exceptional goaltending. But I believe in Knobloch, and I believe he's made the tough decisions when he's had to make the tough decisions. And I think we've got a really good one too. And so, yeah, they're good. I agree. They're good enough to win the cup. I believe in the Oilers. I think they can do it. Obviously, from now until the end of the Stanley Cup, all four teams are exceptional. And I wouldn't be surprised if any one of them wins.
Now, Lotzi, I know you picked the Oilers to lose in the first round against the Kings, so maybe I already know your answer here. But tell me I'm wrong. The Oilers' goaltending is good enough to win a cup this year.
No, I'm going to surprise you here and say that I'm going to agree with your statement. It is good enough to win, but Skinner needs to be playing at his best. Like I've said this many times, but there's two versions of Skinner. There's elite Skinner and there's league average Skinner, right? We need elite Skinner, and we also need the team to play elite defense in front of him. Right. Like Skinner looked a lot better during the 16-game winning streak and after Knobloch got hired because the team started playing a lot better defense in front of them. So if the team can stick to their structure and make Skinner's life easy, then I think the goaltending is good enough. Skinner is the worst goaltender of the four remaining. Like that's painfully clear. But I think the Oilers can defend well enough and score enough to counteract that.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's the end of my hijack of this show. So I don't know if there's anything else important you guys want to talk about, but I got it all off my chest.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
I will say this about the Skinner Picard thing is that playing LA and playing Vancouver, two teams that didn't get a lot of shots on net versus playing Dallas that has consistently got a lot of shots on net, may change our opinion one way or the other. But if we get elite Skinner and we get good defense, then I'll be singing his praises, as we all will.
As we all will.
But Ettinger, whatever you want to call him, what is it? I don't know. He's goaltending
goalie in the
advantage
Western Conference Finals. That's who he is.
Yeah, he's the goaltending advantage. Yeah. Who are you taking, Lotzi, for tonight's game? Who are you taking for the series? Florida and New York.
There's not a lot to pick and choose between these two teams. It's an interesting one. I think the Rangers are faster, but the Panthers are a little bit more physical, stronger. But the one edge I give to the Rangers is the power play. They're running at I think it's a 31% clip in the playoffs, third in the league, whereas the Panthers aren't anywhere near that. Like they're running at 22%. So I think the Rangers power play is going to be the difference in that series.
I got a question for you guys. Like this, if the Oilers make it past Dallas, who would you rather they played?
The Rangers, hands down, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you'd rather they play.
I think we match up a lot better against the Rangers. Like we only get 2 games against each of those Eastern teams a year, but I just think the games against the Rangers are a little more wide open, a little more track meet. That plays into our hands a lot more. Whereas Florida, they're better at just shutting it down defensively and beating us physically. So I think the Florida Panthers would take us in a cup final, but I think we would take the Rangers.
Yeah,
I'm the other way on that for sure. Yeah, no, I'm the opposite. I think like we match up I think we'd take them both. I don't really care. If I got to pick one, I'd rather play Florida. I just think that we score goals, and that's a worse defense and goaltending. We've got tough players too, so I'm not scared of their grit. But if it goes to the Rangers, I don't know. I think it's just going to be a barn burn. It'll be wide open, back and forth, fire wagon hockey, and I'm going to take the Oilers playing fire wagon against anybody. So honestly, I think whoever comes out of the West is winning the cup. I think this Dallas Oilers series is the cup.
I vote for storylines, and there's nothing more than I'd love to see Keith Tkachuk and the Tkachuk brothers crying on the sidelines as the Oilers hoist the cup. So I want to see Edmonton take on Florida in the Stanley Cup final. And Evander Kane rough up Tkachuk a little bit and just have a little bit of fun. I want to hear the fans chant turtle every time Tkachuk handles the puck. That's what I want. I want the storyline, and I want to see the Oilers. But I agree with you, Dash. I think that the Oilers or whoever comes out of the West is going to win the cup this year.
Yeah.
If the Rangers, I think probably have the best chance just based on goaltending alone. I mean, they've really it wouldn't surprise anybody if at the end of the playoffs, I think what's his name gets the Conn Smythe, Shesterkin, and I mean that's not uncommon. But man, I
forgot about Turtle Dance. I'm all for that, to be honest. Yeah, I think that would be pretty fantastic to have Matthew Tkachuk cry his way onto another airplane out of Edmonton. That's that. I think the NHL probably wants New York versus Edmonton, McDavid versus the Big Apple, and it'd be entertaining hockey. That's for sure.
Now, do you think the NHL would rather have the big market New York Rangers in there, or the Sun Belt baby, the Florida Panthers in there?
New York.
Yeah, I mean. I think when they're talking money, I mean, this is the first two rounds were the most watched Stanley Cup finals of all, Stanley Cup playoffs of all time.
And conversely, if it ends up being the Stars and the Panthers, it might be the least watched Stanley Cup final of all time.
Probably, yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah. The Stars have a good base, though. I mean, hockey in Dallas is actually pretty alive and well. Dallas has done a good job of growing the game from the lowest level and moving it up.
Yeah.
Hey, we got 2 minutes left, just about enough time to say our kind of final words. I'll just say I think I'd like to see Florida, as I said. I think they'll come out. Edmonton, I think the important part for the Edmonton Oilers series is the first two games. And if Edmonton can pull one out there, they've got a legit shot. If they lose the first two, I'll be very worried. Dash. And then we'll let Lotsy.
Rangers in 6, Oilers in 6. It's our year, baby. Let's go.
Right on.
Lotsy.
All right, Ryan, you got the last word. Take us home.
All right. All I know is it's going to be a fantastic series. I think we finally have the two best teams in the Western Conference going at it. Stars are at the Western Conference final for the third time in 5 years, including 2 in a row. And the Oilers are here for the second time in 3 years. No other team in the West can say either of those things. So all I know, it's going to be a great series. Buckle up. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and have yourselves a wonderful night and enjoy the series.
Oilerslive.